Now it's your turn, Anne-Louise, to present the next keynote speaker.
Thank you very much, Mette. So, Tuuli Mattelmäki is an associate professor at Aalto University in Finland. Tuuli is also a dear colleague and a close friend of Design School KOLDING. We feel very lucky and we are proud to have her in our international advisory board. I have known Tuuli's work since 2006, when she earned her PhD degree with the renowned work on design probes, a body of work that has served as a great inspiration for many of us following in her footsteps of creative co-design methods. Tuuli's starting point for research is in empathic design and explorative methods in human-centered design and design probes in particular. Today, Tuuli's talk will address empathic and co-creative practices where changing perspectives is the key to make a difference. So it's a pleasure working with you, Tuuli, and I'm very pleased and happy to welcome you on stage.
No? Yes. Super. Oh, thanks, Christian, for wonderful presentation. It's a challenge to continue after you, but I think you made my way a little bit easier by introducing some of the things that I also will touch upon. Hello, everyone. I know some of you familiar faces. It's really a pleasure to be here. One thing that I thought after and during Christian Bason's presentation is that he's putting a lot of stress on us design educators. So if design is the power, what can we do to earn that power and continuously, be in educating students and designers that have that power? So I titled my presentation Challenging Perspectives, and I have to say when I titled this presentation I wasn't quite sure yet what to talk about. And so it's been a nice kind of reflecting process, and I think this reflection will continue, and I hope you can follow my thinking and maybe have a conversation concerning this later on. Designers, we are moving on. This is where I live, where I work. This is the old Arabia building, and we are actually moving away from this campus in a year or so. But we are moving on not only from these houses and locations, but because designers, we are hardly satisfied with the existing. We're seeking potential for change. We want to improve, we want to solve, we are reflective in rethinking, redoing, as the title says. Aalto University, where I come from, actually comes from this kind of a rethinking process. There was a proposal, hey, how about this art and design school joining the other art schools so that, you form a bigger unit with theater and music and so on. Yes, why not? Or actually, what if we think a bit different and join business school and engineering, and how would that make the country prosper with creative T-shaped professionals and a lot of innovation? And yes, that is what happened. And here we are. We are educating game changers, it says in Aalto University's website. And to me, it's not only about game design, it's definitely not only about games as such, but it's really about challenging paradigms and proposing new paradigms. And I think this is a very big challenge for us, and it's a very good direction to go into. Like said, we are moving on. This is a picture of our new building at the other campus. And in Arts, Design and Architecture school, where I come from, we have a slogan, another perspective. And this doesn't refer only to all the angles in the new building, but it actually talks about proposing new ways of looking at things. It's about seeking surprising points of view. The master program that I lead at the Department of Design is called Collaborative and Industrial Design. Ooh, this is wobbly. It educates students that come from almost all parts of the world to expand industrial design with human-centered approaches, strategic thinking, and research. We have characterized the program as follows. It's about in-depth understanding of design's role in society and in the emerging fields where design activities can enhance the quality of the environment and people's life. I've highlighted some of the key words that I think mark a big statement. I think, how many of you are trained designers? Like almost everyone, no. And most of you, the rest of you, are probably educating designers. So this is the world we live in. We have to ponder, where are we going? What do we leave behind? What do we keep? What are the important things? And this is a bit what I've been thinking about in my talk. So changing perspectives definitely is in the core of design. It's the basic activity of making sense of the whole, seeking the details and how they are in relation with each other. Last week I talked with a friend of mine, Lisa Nugent, who works in pharma company nowadays, and she's leading a team of designers. And I talked about this talk, and she said, yes. The best design schools in the world educate people to reframe, juxtapose, challenge, criticize, and propose new entry points. I think this is really important. It's about changing perspectives. So there's a lot of good stuff that we've been doing for years, and then there's the new stuff, dealing, for example, with societal change and these kind of big challenges. And we need to find a way to balance between those. Let me see. Oops, here. Yeah. That's interesting. Let's see if it works from here. No.
It doesn't. It's frozen.
Okay. No, maybe it's because Here it goes. Okay. Thank you for coming here. That's often very helpful. So in this talk I will focus on basically two things. The other one is this kind of fundamental in design, changing perspectives, moving in and out. And the other one is about changing perspectives as is done in empathic design in co-creative practices. Okay. So in empathic design, that's what I've been doing most of my research on. We started with thinking, okay, there are users, there are designers, and we need to make them meet and especially help the designers to change perspective and see the world from the user's perspective. We talked about the human capacity of empathy. We talked about getting under the skin of the users and so forth. Very important. That's then we developed a lot of tools for that. in order to foster empathy and facilitate collaboration and dialogue between different stakeholders in and for design. But that part has changed. We're actually looking not only users, but we're looking at people in a more holistic way. We're also facilitating all kinds of relationships between people in networks with stakeholders that need to also understand who are the people that they are serving. And we have to keep on helping them to find also the sensitivity of becoming empathic and changing perspectives. So there we focus on relations and relationships. We also seen a really important step in fostering empathic perspectives within organizations so that they have this kind of mindset, value change, and networks as well. Especially when we're dealing with services or these kind of things in a wide scale of service design. We talk about different sectors, we talk about citizens, we talk about bureaucracy and people within, and all kinds of collaborative platforms. And here we really talk about design as part of a bigger system. And here I could come back to this changing perspective. I think what has happened, and we saw in Kristian's presentation, that the scale we operate within design has also changed tremendously. And we still need to move between the small scale and the big scale. One of the projects that I was involved with last year was done with the Ministry of Employment and the Economy in Finland. We, as many other countries, have a lot of immigrants coming in, and the system wasn't really built for this number of immigrants entering the country. And our task was to develop or make sense of these complex immigration service journeys and help the ministry to find out how to make this kind of a digital platform that would serve both the immigrants but also the civil servants in different organizations. This was a big challenge. It was me, one postdoc, Helena Sustar, and 3 master's students. Think about it. So we had 4 ministries involved, 96 people altogether in different stages of the process. A lot of service providers. We went to different cities to interview people. We very much acknowledge that the human-sized perspective, the empathic perspective, is not enough. And actually, if you think about it, there's a lot of also critical points today. Here we hear critical comments about empathy, that it's too narrow for making big decisions. We acknowledge that. But we also noticed that in systemic design literature, there's not really mentioning about empathy or this kind of more like individual points of view. So we tried to combine and experiment with both of those and seek the balance between them. Helena Sustar, the researcher in this project, she was very stubbornly establishing the project so that the empathy is there everywhere. It was there when interviewing people in different cities, in different organizations, the way, considering them not just bureaucrats, but as people, the kind of things that they struggle with, what kind of situation they face. It was part of the activities that we organized a number of workshops, different kind of meetings, getting feedback, putting people in the position of designers to set up the customer journeys and propose how the system should be organized. Not only did we look at the characters within the system, but we also asked them to help us to map out the whole thing, the whole big picture. I think it was very wisely said by Richard Buchanan at some point of time that people don't experience a system, they only experience their own pathway through the system. And I think this is what we were trying to do, also seeing these pathways and how they cross across this big bureaucratic system. The feedback from the participants was that it was important for them to see what the other guys are doing in this process. So because there's so many different, quite independently working organizations, they don't always see each other's role in this process. And even in the final report, we wanted to emphasize not only the design solutions, because that's there too, and I'm not telling about that much more, but the design solution also includes a certain kind of collaborative aspect, so that these organizations that are involved will actually have to continue collaborating in the future. But what was important is also seeing that there are all kinds of layers and people in those layers, the kind of concerns that they have, that also influence how the immigrants eventually can enter the country in a smooth, less or more smooth way. And it was nice to hear also from Christian that it took them 4 years to get some of these digital platforms working, because this is not yet working, and we hope it will be in the future. In these kind of circumstances, we do a lot of co-creation, and I think it's not easy, definitely, but how can we avoid it? It's important. There are all kinds of languages and all kinds of expectations and experiences, motivations, agendas, and so forth. And it's really about bringing people together and seek the ways to talk about these things. Co-creation and collective creativity definitely takes place in these kind of meetings between people face to face. But it's also a much bigger agenda, phenomena, a trend in the world. And I think we are kind of, as designers, working in both of these scales very strongly in this set up stages for people to meet, but also thinking at what is this openness, and who are we designing with, and who are the designers? Are there other designers than us? What kind of things are we designing? Who are we designing with and for? And in these kind of new settings of design, what is the outcome of the design activity? That's one of the questions I think I'm at least thinking quite often. Because design process as such is a catalyst to change, and like Christian said, design has power. And especially what I'm critical today with is these kind of simplified models of what design process is like. This is definitely not enough in order to understand what are all the phases and places where design can be and where we can start changing perspectives. We wrote a paper together with Stefan Holmlid and Frauke Slesvig-Visser and Kisikka Vajakali about co-creative practices in service design. And we actually tried to propose that different stages where co-creative practices in design can take place. Well, definitely there's the design time. That's what we very much know about, the exploration, co-design, proposing solutions. But then also implementation time, where some of these ideas are taken into the context and they seek their life in that context and the kind of systems they are part of. And the performance time. I think that's part of the co-creative practices that has not been touched upon that much. What actually happens in this service interaction, for example, between people and people? I have some examples from my students' work, and these students' work are from a course called Designing for Services, where we do co-design and we typically collaborate with municipalities. The first one was a project with the city of Helsinki. The students were given a task of rethinking how 3-year-old kids' health checks will be organized. They were asked to do a service journey, how that could happen, because there was an idea that, well, typically we have these service centers, these kind of clinics for students to, I see my student taking a picture there, that's why. So the kids go to these clinics and with their parents, and they meet the nurses there, and then now the idea is that what if these health checks could take place in kindergartens, because that's where the kids are anyway. The students, we had a 7-week project, and the students went to different places. They talked with nurses, they talked with daycare people, they talked with the parents and so on. I think they didn't talk with these 3-year-olds enough. That was my critique on this. Anyway, they noticed very quickly that one idea doesn't fit all. There are different kind of communities. There's the more urban, dense community, there are the suburban areas and so forth. What they actually proposed is a co-creative tool for these local people to figure out how they want the system to be organized. So this askeleet game, it's steps in Finnish, was played in different parts of Helsinki by the local people, dentists and daycare people and parents, to open up issues that are important when organizing this kind of a service. And I hope they keep on working with that tool. It doesn't look that special, but it actually has a lot of content within. And then about the implementation time. Another group of students went to a service center for aging people. In that service center, there was a nurse, but the nurse wasn't part of the overall, like the official healthcare system. And so their brief was to think, how could that nurse be more fluently part of the official service system? So again, the student went to that place, they volunteered, they served coffee, they talked with people, they organized workshops, they talked with several people. They tried to also get access to the official service, healthcare services, but they were not invited. What was clear was that the nurse was considered super important, but she was not visible enough in the service center. So the student proposed, among other things, that how about you move from your room, because there was this official room for her to meet these aging people. How about you move into the canteen, the cafeteria every once in a while, so that you start, they're like these kind of more casual conversations. Of course, that's a big step for a nurse as a professional to do. And what I heard was that the student had to convince her by saying, well, we have only limited time in this course, and the professor really wants us to prototype this. So she said, okay, you've been so nice, I will do it for you. And she did. And apparently it worked, because 6 months later we interviewed this person, and she said she still continues this practice of what is called nurse cafe. And she says that she's meeting 80% more people than previously. Her boss said that, why didn't you think about this yourself? Because it's kind of a little thing and such a simple idea. But she said, you need to change perspectives. It's in your routine day. You don't think about these kind of things. It needs someone else to come there and think about it. So this was very much about prototyping, really. And the third example that I have, it's a bit different. We were very worried about youth that are falling out of the society. And then we collaborated with these kind of centers, service centers, where youth with problems can go and get coached with their problems. The students started going there, interviewing, being engaged with youth and these local coaches, and co-design different kind of tools for them to help them in these service settings. One of the tools was called Que Pasa, What's Up? And it's a game, very much like a design game we use in co-designing with users. But in this case, we didn't really have a user. We had a person and a helper. And this is actually very interesting, because when I was listening the tapes that were recorded when the coach and the student were talking about different issues in their lives, I started thinking, this is very much like a design discussion. They are mapping the landscape of things. They are trying to see the connections between those two, between these different elements in there. And yes, this was also something that the coach said that, of course, they knew the young person before, but they typically talk about one thing at a time. But here they kind of tried to cover a bigger picture. And this young person said that you wouldn't play this alone. It requires someone else to challenge you to change perspectives. I have 2 more examples, and this is about challenging paradigms. I have 2 students that finished their PhD thesis recently, both of them having background in design. The other one is Claudia Cardinale, who during her doctoral research established an educational program called Aalto Lab Mexico. Making the world a better place was something that she challenged herself and the student with. She took a lot of students to meet these communities in jungles in Mexico and seek how to improve the situation there. She also looked a lot in philosophy, and actually in her thesis she makes a certain kind of design framework that asks what to use design competence for. Is it for justice? Is it for driving justice? Or is it something else? Very important. And here I think the design also has an interesting power by the practice-based research and posing these kind of big questions. Another example is a doctoral, well, she's not a student anymore, she's a postdoc, Yiying Wu, who established these kind of plant hotels. And it's an intervention to explore collaborative services. She asked people to take care of each other's plants. Her doctoral thesis talks about collaborative services, but she also questions the current paradigm. Are we served by the society, or should we serve each other? How do we care, and do we care? And as you see in my picture, it says, who should? I should. No, who is organizing this, and so forth. Very interesting approach. Again, dealing very much with design. And then I try to wrap up my thinking through these examples. So co-creative practice is planned to research and learning contest with contributions to learning. In a way, what we need to do is understand what this new design is about, what are the materials we're working with, the concepts, the paradigms, even the functionalities that we are dealing with when designers are more and more orchestrating co-creation and choreographing different configurations for shaping the world we live in. The first one, designing, deals with design process itself, that I very much think we should be very conscious to keep it and articulate it in an even better way. The second one is about empathy and really dare to care. Don't think that the systemic view is enough. Don't think that the individual view is enough, but be courageous to bring them together and help not only you but also other people to change perspective, understand each other. It's really about attitude, ability, and willingness. And the third one, design playgrounds, deals with this, what I tried to talk about also, about this changing from small scale to big scale and challenging ourselves all the time in moving to new emerging fields. And finally, this fourth one it's about these kind of paradigms. It's not only our paradigms in design, but it's also the paradigms in society. How are societies organized? Who has the voice and who not? So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tuuli. We also hope that you will wear these
I will.
flowers. And we have something for you. Thank you very much. It was very interesting.
Thank you.